All right, hello everybody on Facebook. I'm trying to do a quick multi-stream, but we're having a little bit of difficulties over on Twitch. But I'm going to at least record it, and and then we'll see if it does come back. Um, uh, Anyway, I'm joined with Ken, DC's People's Champion. I'm also joined by Dujane, who I'll bring in just a second. I've been trying to get this setup to work, and it's been struggling tonight, so I'm sorry for any technical difficulties. But we're going to try to stream on Facebook, and then I'll let the Twitch people know that it's not working, and maybe I'll try to wire something different for next week. But I did want to get the podcast on and at least started on the Facebook side. But Ken, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. It's Victory Monday. I'm really happy that the Commanders were able to open the season up with a hard-fought victory over the Cardinals, and it's a good day. It's a good day.
Yeah, I'm so happy that they got this big victory. I did talk to Carol yesterday. I had a little 10-minute segment. You can catch that on our Instagram page and the full post game and pregame on Carol's stuff as well. And Carol wanted to be here tonight, but he unfortunately had some work calling, and so work comes first. And we said we would cover for him. So I'm happy that Champ is joining me live. And we're going to bring in our next guest. Here, Dujane, who has helped us cover the Washington Commanders, the Washington football team, the Redskins. We've covered it all over the last couple of years. And how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, staying busy. Um, it's that time of year, football and drag racing kind of combined. So it's busy working on a new show here, trying to get that put together here, and hopefully we'll be out soon.
Yeah. I feel so bad for all the Twitch people that want to be a part of this conversation. I'm gonna just direct them right now to our page if people want to join us there, and I will share this to a bunch of different groups as well. I am happy that we're gonna get this thing at least recorded and put out there. I think it's an important victory. It was interesting. We all picked us to win this game, but which is the only time or one of the very few times that happens this whole season. Our picks are up on the page as well, but I was really happy because we had a really rough first half, and I thought that we had some really bad turnovers. And our defense did make some stops, but I kind of expected a little bit more from them early. But they got hungry late, and they kind of turned the turnover differential back into back our way. And I thought that was a big difference. But Dujane, what are some of your thoughts on this game? As I will share it to a couple of groups as well.
I think a lot of people just underestimated the Arizona Cardinals. They've been had a defense. I understand that their quarterback is Josh Dobbs, but again, new offense. He's able to do some things with his legs. They do have playmakers at the wide receiver position. So I really just think that, especially the national media, really kind of crapped on them. And I don't think it's as bad as it seemed. It sure didn't. Their defense really balled. Came out, was very aggressive. We understand the O-line is a little bit of a point of concern for this football team, but I really, it's not something that I didn't expect as far as the offensive play goes. You got a second-year quarterback who's only starting in his second game. You got an offensive line that's trying to find some type of cohesiveness. They haven't really found that, and we saw that at different times during the game, whether it's missed assignments or they just flat out got beat. But this team was resilient, and that's what you need. Sometimes you're going to win some games like this, and it's just nice to see that this team finally gets one of these close wins that they were dropping, especially late in the season last season.
Yeah, I'm just excited. The energy in the crowd. We're hoping to have Hurt join us in a little bit to talk about the crowd. But I was happy. It just felt like a new beginning. I know we kind of did this fake rebranding thing a couple of years ago. I don't necessarily love the results of it. He said he's going to stick with those results. I don't necessarily think that that they should. I think that they should maybe reconsider the Commander's name. But I'll whatever. We'll root for them no matter what they're called. And I do think it's really important that the team just gets behind this, and as a fandom, we just push. I like that we were sold out, and I like the energy that was and that kind of helped push them a little bit in the second half, I felt. And I think that we need to ride that. And this needs to be like this turning point chapter in this history book. We've had some rough couple of years. And I thought that this was really great. I love the rushing touchdown in the second half. When he didn't have anything there, and he bootlegged out and he got it himself. And I thought that was a big turning point in this game. And just the fans could really sigh and believe. And they're like, "Oh no, not again." I was starting to get a little worried in the first half. That we maybe overlooked Arizona. But DJ, what are some of your thoughts on some of that?
Well, this team's winning. Nobody's going to give a crap about what it's called. It could be the Washington Teapots. It doesn't matter. As long as they win, I think the name doesn't matter. And I think that's what the ownership sees as well. As far as the offense, first half, I thought Arizona did some things really well. They decided to bring a little heat. That was putting a little stress, especially on the tackles. I do like the way Sam Howell has that feel in the pocket, being able to step up, look downfield, or either decide that he's going to run. The first interception, it was tipped. He gets awarded that, but it was an assisted deal there. If it was a clean throw, I believe that's complete. So unfortunately, that was picked off. The biggest thing that I had a problem with was the fumble. We got to protect the football there. That fumble that goes for a touchdown. And you think about it in that first half, right? So Washington gets a touchdown in the first quarter after 8 plays and a punt. Defense was able to come out and get stops, and then they go 6 plays, 91 yards for the touchdown. Arizona comes back, gets a field goal. And really, the second quarter was the tough one. The interception, you've got 2 fumbles within that, but they also didn't give up any points, with the exception of the fumble that turned into a touchdown in that second quarter. And what I like about what Sam Howell was doing, look, the stats don't look great, but at the end of the day, each time he came back out, no matter what the mistake was, there was no sign of any of that affecting him. He came back out and continued to fire, and it was huge for them. And that at the end of the second quarter, to actually go down after giving up 10 points to Arizona on turnovers and get that field goal right before the half, I thought that was huge. That's something we hadn't seen Washington do in quite some time. And they made it look pretty easy. And of course, it's nice when your kicker rewards, finishes it by getting and going and kicking that thing and getting it in between the uprights. So I thought the first half was a slugfest between 2 defenses. Obviously, the turnovers didn't help. But for Washington to still be in the game coming into the second half, despite all that went down in the first half, was pretty remarkable. It says a lot about this team, and it says a lot about your quarterback and his resilience. And he's pretty much got ice in his veins. These things don't really rattle or affect him at all.
Yeah, I think that's such a big point because I somehow felt so much better with that field goal at the end of the first half. I did say that rushing touchdown was kind of the turning point in the second half, but I don't think that ever happens without that field goal. I think that was a huge, momentum shift, and they could kind of feel a little better about themselves. Some of the missed drives where they still let them score a field goal, it was kind of counterbalanced by the field goal at the end of the half. And I was just the resiliency of it. It's a young team. I kind of felt that the offensive line and the offense would have growing pains,
Yep.
but I was kind of disappointed by that defense in the first half, but I really felt that they kind of got themselves together and got themselves right and just become a dominant force because they were fine in the first half. They weren't bad. I don't say they were horrible or anything like that. They kept them in it. I mean, there was a couple drives that they don't hold them to field goals. It's touchdowns early. The game is over, no doubt. But there wasn't that dominant factor, right? Where they're taking the ball away, they're punching him in the face, they're not letting them even get one first down, they're stopping them behind the line of scrimmage. That sort of what they could be wasn't there, and so it takes time and adjustments. But I was happy to see it.
Well, I think they did dominate. I mean, you take away the interception that really didn't fall on the defense for the touchdown. They really in the first half only allowed 2 field goals outside of that touchdown that was given up from a fumble.
Right.
They stopped them after the fumble with the 8 plays, 59 yards. I believe that was Gibson who fumbled the ball down there. They go 3 plays and punt and got -1 yards, but the offense went 4 plays, 4 yards, didn't do anything. They got the ball back. They went 6 plays, 25 yards, did nothing.
Yeah.
That's true. Then the fumble again. That was the fumble that was for the touchdown, and that's what really sent it over. Outside of all of that, it's a 6-point ball game.
Yeah, you're right. I will concede that, but I don't know. I don't know. I felt that there was times it seemed that they were moving the ball a little bit better, and then I would have liked early. But you're right. They started to tighten up in the second quarter, and so on, and then really in the second half they played a great game, and they started to become that force. Because I think we got to be a good running game, great defense, and that's got to be our identity for sure.
Yeah. I mean, don't take anything away from Arizona. I mean, they've got Connor, they've got Brown, they've got Moore, they've got speed out there. And that plays a big part when you're able to get guys in space. That's what they were trying to do. Josh Dobbs has he doesn't have the quickest wheels, but he does have the ability to be able to, move around and buy some time with his legs. And I thought they did a pretty good job of that. They were moving the ball a little bit, but for the most part, it was punt team. And if you don't turn it over and you don't turn it over down in your red zone and allow them to get that easy touchdown, it's a different ball game here. If you take away those 7 points off the board. So I thought the defense really hung in there and they really stepped up because I said it. I really said it in the second half. It was a need for the defense to have a takeaway that was going to put the offense into a short down and distance position to be able to score some points. They needed it. And the defense came up big. It was a dry third quarter, but at the end of that third quarter, Montez Sweat, who had been a monster pretty much all day long, was the catalyst to get that sack fumble and put this offense in position to be able to score a touchdown.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for tuning in on Facebook. Thanks, Carol, for sharing it, and for all the people that are live. And again, I apologize to some of the Twitch people, but some of the Twitch people came over to Facebook, and so I appreciate Carly and others for joining us over there. I am not going to be streaming the game tonight, so I'll rely on some of my other correspondents in the second half to give me scoring updates because I don't want to mess up what we have so far. But I do want to announce that Aaron Rodgers did get carted off in that game, and I don't know, Dujane, do you have any other thoughts on the live Monday Night Football game?
Other than the fact that I'm pissed that Aaron Rodgers lasted 4 plays when I needed 30 points to win this daggone fantasy football game, I'm a little pissed about that.
Oh, no.
I mean, his highlight moment is running with the American flag.
Whoa, Dujane, I thought you couldn't talk about fantasy, bro.
I'm breaking a little bit of rules here, but
I'm trying to help you out, brother. Come on now.
Yeah, it's really disrespectful. I'm going to get into that real quick. That's really disrespectful. Networks can talk about fantasy football, but us reporters cannot talk about fantasy football. It's absolutely insane. It's ridiculous. We had to let go of some partnerships with DraftKings and so on. And yet they're still using that stuff and they have shows about it. the hypocritical
Oh,
nature of
that's
the
such
NFL.
bullshit. This is
Yeah.
why I have to say my own thoughts on fantasy. I don't want to root against my team or the Ravens in any situation. And I know the best team put forward, I'd have to pick some players for other teams that I don't like.
Yeah.
So I refuse to do it. But, I enjoy it. That's why I do pick them, right? We all do pick them
Right.
together because we're allowed to at least make picks on games. So, like, they
Right.
haven't
Right.
taken that away from us, thankfully. So,
Yeah.
but. We will talk about Pick'em a little bit later, though, and Champ is crushing it this week.
Yeah. He's had an excellent week.
Yeah, and so we'll get into that in the second hour and talk about the crazy NFL as a whole. I will ask you real quickly because I know your time is short, Dujanet. Do you have any thoughts on the first week of the NFL as a whole? And also, I wanted your thoughts on Bama and Texas because I know you're a college football guy as well. And I did a super jinx on Bama this week, which Liz is pissed about, but I'm very happy about. But anyway, I want to get your thoughts on both the general NFL and that college game and any other college thoughts you have in the last 5 minutes before you got to go.
I think we're seeing some parity in the league. Everybody thought the Falcons were going to be trash, and I understand that they're playing the Panthers, who's got a young quarterback, a young core there, but they played well. The Lions, another team, everybody's, Kansas City fans making excuses about who they didn't have on the field, but at the end of the day, you taking away from the Lions defense that forced Pat Mahomes to throw a lot of high throws and critical third downs that ended up having them to punt the ball. So regardless of who you had on the field or not, the Lions defense was still balling and being very disruptive. Some of the games went the way I thought. The 49ers, Brock Purdy still picking it up right where he left off. Steelers, I think, are still building. At least that's what it looks like. I don't think it's an indictment on Kenny Pickett. I think they'll get it together in time, but they faced a 49ers team that is polished. They've got everything in place. The only thing that was the concern was Brock Purdy, and he looked like he was just as healthy as he's ever been in that game. So not really surprised about the Browns and the Bengals either. The Browns are a good football team collectively. If they can get the offensive side of the ball together, they were able to do that. Defense just completely dominated the Bengals, and they were able to come out and get their first win of the season. So it's some cool stuff going on in the league, especially with the Buccaneers. Who would have thought that they would have won, especially with Baker Mayfield. He's kind of a roller coaster ride. So I really enjoyed this first week in football. I thought it was really funny that we should have had a running clock for the Cowboys and Giants. I'm just going to say it. I've been saying it over and over and over and over again. Daniel Jones is not anything special. He is what he is. We saw it at the Senior Bowl. It hasn't changed. Okay. He had a freak year last year, being able to run the football and run it, and Saquon was dominant in that department. But there's a lot of defenses in this division that have gotten better. And as long as the Commanders don't come in and do what they normally do when they play the Giants, forget how to totally play football, and they actually come out and do what they need to do, it's going to be pretty much the same every time they face a division foe. That's just all it is to it. They overpaid for a below average quarterback. It is what it is. Okay. And good for him. He cashed it in and he was able to do what he needed to do in that time. But, it's a whole year in that offense now. People know what they're going to do. They've seen it before. And it's just a matter of execution. And they got completely blowed up defensively. Dallas's defense looks really good. Offensively, we'll see. I still don't believe because Mike McCarthy is the guy calling the plays.
There's a meme on the internet of a wanted poster for Daniel Jones for armed robbery.
For sure. Welcome in, Hurt. All right, we're gonna get last question for Dujanet, and then we're gonna get you out of here. Did you have any final thoughts on the college football before you get out?
I knew Texas was going to come in and do what they needed to do. The thing about beating Bama is not falling into the trap of being caught up in the whole aura of what they are or have been over the last couple of years. They came in, was very confident. They punched him in the mouth, and they just kept on throttling until they got to the end.
I couldn't believe it. I told her to bet a lot on Alabama because it was home and it is against a team that's out of their conference, and that has been like their bread and butter over the last couple of years. And so I was surprised.
They have a great quarterback. He's just not ready yet. He's
Yeah.
a very run first kind of guy, not very accurate with his downfield or mid range throws. He's got an arm he's got a cannon that can throw a deep ball, but he's just not there yet. And Texas just a little bit more polished than them. So I really thought that they were going to come in and get a win. I didn't see it as big as it was, but it's nice to see them fall.
It was quite a game. Yeah, it was rough game for the Aggies, so I won't get into that too much. But thank you so much for your time. We'll get you back on next week, and we have another big game, and we'll break that down. But thank you for joining through the technical difficulties. I want to give a shout out to all the Twitch people for joining over on Facebook. Almost everybody that was over there on the other side came through over here, so big props to them. I know switching platforms is not the easiest, so thank you for everyone for sticking with us, and thank you so much for being a part of tonight's show. It's been 3 months. It's so good to see you.
I know, man.
And I hope that you have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, brother. And Hurt, you looking good, baby. You're looking good.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was about to say, my man's looking phenomenal right now. And
know.
happy belated birthday to Sophie, man.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. She's she tried to do everything she could to keep me from physically being able to make the game, but I made it.
Nice.
It was worth it.
All right, fellas, y'all have a great show. And,
yes.
It's cool to be back. First show of the year.
Victory Monday.
It's going to be a fun year.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
For sure. So, thank you so much. All right. If you want to get any of Dujanay's links, go to our website, sportsothp.com. Click our team, SportsOTHP. It's got all of his links right there as well. And Hurt, it's so good to see you. It's been too long, and it's I loved your video of from the crowd. You look great. I've been following your YouTube channel, which is doing phenomenal, and congratulations on all of your success over the last year and doing some pretty cool things. I know you can't say everything of what you've been involved with, so far. I can't wait for you to be able to announce that. But let people know a little bit about what you've been up to, because it's probably been almost a year since you've been on the show. And then give us your thoughts on going to the game.
So in the last year, I've been working on the project, as Robbie alluded to. I can't really publicly talk about it yet, but the date is coming when I can actually speak about it. And I'm told that everyone's going to know what I've been doing the last year, July of 2024. Everybody's going to know. But I can't really say much more than that until that happens. Other than that, the YouTube channel, Life versus Lymphedema, is really popping off right now. Last check, we were at 700 something followers. I'm trying to get to 1,000, hopefully by the end of the year. Definitely before that thing happens next year, I need to be at 1,000 followers, because it's going to accelerate after that. And that's pretty much it. It's just the new endeavor I'm on takes me away from podcasting. It takes me away from, primarily now I'm a father first, and then I'm doing this other thing second. I got this new great job working nights. I'm actually going to be headed out of here in about 10 minutes to get on the road toward that. And that's pretty much it for me.
You look great, though. I'm so happy to see you. It's been great to follow the journey. I hope people actually do go check out that YouTube channel. I'm so mad I'm not on Twitch right now, because I have commands all ready for you. It's going to shout you out and do bells and whistles. But, I'm happy that we're here on Facebook. This is where we started. This is, I appreciate that. So
if anybody's watching, you can go to Life versus Lymphedema on YouTube. Life versus Lymphedema on YouTube will tell you more about what I can't say here.
Right.
You can go there and get the skinny, as it were. No pun
Exactly.
intended.
I like the pun if it was. But anyway, let's talk about this game because we were talking with Duchesne. He has kind of alluded to the fact that defense was good throughout. I really thought that they became dominant in the second half. I know it rained at times. Oh, there it is. Life versus lymphedema. That's great. There you go. So go on that on YouTube. And so it was cool to see your sort of. We have a video we posted on the page of your immediate recap of being there and the energy in the building. But speak to some of that energy. Speak to it was rainy. There were fights. It was madness. But talk about being there and how it felt different than some of the previous years.
So in the previous years, we're just kind of out there, and it's like, come on, Now, in full disclosure, for all of my Dan defending, because I want fans to understand why they hate Dan Snyder and hate him for the right reasons and not just because he was a loser. I didn't give him my money. I couldn't give him my money because I didn't enjoy the game, the experience. The last game I went to was when LeVar Arrington went rogue and went crazy against San Francisco, and it was like 05, 06. It was way back.
Oh, wow.
It's been a while since I've been to a game. But I decided to go to this game. I wanted to be there for the new regime. I wanted to be there and just feel the atmosphere. And it was insane. First of all, it was a legit sellout. Yeah, there was some empty seats, but it was a legit sellout. I mean, it was packed in there. Everybody was next to everybody. The energy was crazy. You had people high-fiving. Before the game started, we gonna do it, baby. Let's go. Like, everybody was so hyped. They were so amped. People are high-fiving. They're hugging at the scoring plays. They're hugging at the touchdowns. Complete strangers, people you've never seen before, people you're never going to see again. You're connected with on that level. I haven't seen or felt that kind of energy in FedEx Field ever. And I doubt that things had gotten better since the last time I was there.
Yeah.
Maybe in 2012 it was like that. But then get home and watch it on TV, a lot of the things that happened in the stadium didn't make it to TV. Lots of fuck Dan Snyder chants. Lots of them. Nice. Didn't make TV, of course.
Of course.
One thing I did notice, third play of the game, Logan Thomas just had to drop. On the very next play, De'Ami Brown broke long. I don't know what happened. There was a mix-up in the defense. De'Ami Brown was by himself at the 10-yard line. He could have been doing jumping jacks. There was no player within 25 yards of him. And Sam Howell stared him down, and instead he checked down, if you want to call it that, to Jahan Dotson. It was still like 13 yards for a first down, but that touchdown was there. And I didn't think about it until I watched it on TV. You could hear the whole crowd groan, the murmur, because we knew it was about to be a touchdown. We were waiting to explode.
Yeah, I didn't see that, so it was hard to see it. Like later
they didn't show it on TV. They didn't show how open he was on TV.
Yeah. So
the fight that people were watching actually happened 2 sections over from me. It happened in 117. I was in 113. And the only reason I missed it was because when the rain started coming down, I ran out to get a poncho. And by the time I got back, not only was the fight already over with, but the rain had stopped.
Yeah. I saw that. It was kind of like this weird timing, like the rain hit at a certain time in the game and it slowed it down, and then it kind of like lightened up back when we needed to sort of finish the deal. So it was kind of interesting to watch the crowd reaction, the games. And so going forward, we've all been pretty high on this team, and we've got an interesting game coming up next week. And so Hurt, I want to get your thoughts going. How do we continue this momentum going onto the road? Because I think we could easily, beat Denver, but it's still, I don't know. They haven't proven everything to us yet. If it's the second half team, maybe. The first half team, maybe not. So
energy aside, I was not overly impressed with the performance of the team. Rookie jitters. Sam Howell's still a rookie. Rookie jitters. People are prepared for him now. He can't surprise anybody like he did Dallas. The offensive line is offensive.
Yeah, it's so bad. I thought we were fixing this.
If Chase Young is a modicum of what he was his rookie year, the defensive line is extra, super, mega dominant. And they kept us in the game. They kept us alive. Deron Payne was getting held every play. You can't double team Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen. You got to let one of them go one-on-one, and whoever you don't double team is going to get through. And Montez Sweat's going to get through. It was bad. It was bad. Like, defense is our saving grace. The defense didn't give up any touchdowns. They only gave up field goals. The offense literally fumbled the game away. I'm so disappointed in Gibson. You got to fix those mistakes. And if EB is the taskmaster that he made us believe he was in preseason, he's going to get those things fixed this week. There's going to be ball control. There's going to be watching the takeovers, turnovers. Sam Howell didn't make a lot of bad throws. I know in the stadium, it looked like he threw an interception. We watched it on TV. The ball was tipped. In the stadium, we didn't know that. In the stadium, we're like, we threw it right to him. And, the word kind of spread from people who were getting notifications from at home. Oh, it was a tipped ball. You got to fix those things. But Denver, you might be able to beat because I think Russell Wilson's over the hill. And I don't think Denver has anything to offer us. I don't think their defense is as good as Arizona's. I think Arizona has a good defense, and we were able to get through to them. But you got a long way to go if we want to have a good showing against Buffalo. And even though I will be in the house for that Buffalo game, I just found out this morning, I will be in the house with even better seats, and a different jersey. I don't know, man. I think that's going to be our first loss of the season if we don't lose to Denver.
Right.
And I wouldn't be shocked if we did.
Yeah, I'm looking at our picks real fast, across the board. Almost everyone, well, a lot of us picked us a win. Tim, Arun, and Sith all picked us as a loss. I think you had it as a win. I know we didn't get the graphic in on time, but I believe that you did pick a win before
I picked
the
a win
first
for
game.
Denver. I picked us to win against Denver, yes.
Right. And everyone has us losing to Buffalo except for Seth, by the way. And, so
Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo, that one's going to be a rough one. And then the next week at Philadelphia, everyone has a loss except for Sith as well. So
Sith is the ultimate. He's the ultimate, just optimist. That's what he is.
But it's funny because a lot of us have him at 10 or 11 wins. So, I think we're all fairly optimistic about this team. So it'll be interesting to see how it happens, whether it goes on. Both CP3 and I have us going on a 5-game win streak to end the season to get to, I had it at 11 wins. He has it at 12 wins. CP3 is always very optimistic. But it'll be interesting to see how this season goes. I want to get your quick thoughts, Hart. I know you got to go. Any other thoughts about week 1 in general before we let you go?
I thought we'd be doing a lot more running. I thought we'd be more of a running team, and we need to run the ball a little bit more. I hate that I'm back in the place where I have to say we have to run the ball a little more because we don't have an offensive line built for the passing that EB wants to do. We don't have the offensive line built for
So why is that, though? Like, we knew what he wanted. We just couldn't get the players. I just don't understand why this is a constant issue.
We're going to have to draft those players because for the money that we're having to pay, our defense, we're going to keep it real. And Montez Sweat's going to demand even more money. For the money that we're having to pay the defense, we'll have to pay Montez Sweat this year. We're going to have to pay Jahan Dotson next year. And at some point, we're probably going to have to pay Sam Howell. We're going to have to draft the line that he needs. We're going to have to, first and second round picks are going to have to be offensive linemen next year. No way around it.
Yeah.
We just don't have it. I thought we had some good pickups, but whoever the guy was we picked up, we cut. I was really excited about from the Giants. Didn't we cut him? I missed it.
Yeah.
But
it didn't look very good.
Cosby looked like he took a step back.
Yeah.
That's not what we need. We need a step forward from him, not a step back. But I can tell you, as somebody who played every position on the line, offense and defense, I can tell you it's so much harder to go backwards than it is to go forward. It's so much easier to run block than it is to pass block. It's so much easier. But that's not what he wants to do. He wants to pass.
Yeah, well, we'll see if that works. Especially, I'm a little worried. Mile High, traveling West Coast. There's a lot of factors here. So, I hope that we can find a way to run the ball, not get too gassed, and conserve ourselves, and become a force in the second half and make these adjustments that were so important in this game.
One thing I'm not worried about is conditioning, because let me tell you what, the team did not look tired in the fourth quarter like they did under Jay Gruden. By the fourth quarter, we're not used to these tough practices and playing all 4 quarters. That didn't happen. They were, I don't know if it was a crowd energy or what, but in the fourth quarter, they looked like they could have played the fifth quarter. They really did. They really did. So I'm not too worried about them being tired. I hope they get out to Denver early and get that air in and stuff like that. But
real quick, because I was watching it, and they were saying that in past years it used to be that the road team was the dominant jerseys that were in the crowd. Was that the case this year? Was it more home team jerseys than road team?
Man, let me tell you what. I saw 1, 2, 3, 4. I saw 5 Cardinals jerseys.
Wow.
I saw 5 of them.
And then one Ravens jersey who was in a fight.
And then one Ravens jersey. Like I said, I saw him before the game. He got his ass kicked. He was right over there. There was a Green Bay jersey.
He was in a fight 2 weeks ago too. I don't know why he came back. Like, why aren't you watching the Ravens? I don't understand. Like,
I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, look. There was a Green Bay jersey behind me, and there were 2 Patriots jerseys. I saw more Cowboys jerseys than I saw Cardinals jerseys. Lots of Cowboys jerseys.
Why do Cowboys fans come to our games?
Ticket holder that comes with his whole family, and they all have their Cowboys gear on. I'm just like, if you could find Dallas on the map, I'm sure you'd go there.
What are they doing? I never understood that.
But yeah, no, this was not just a sellout. There was nothing but maroon, white, and black. Lots of Sean Taylor jerseys. And I'm speaking as somebody, I had on the burgundy Sean Taylor jersey. My black one's on the way. I just do want the Santana Moss one. Just do this.
Yeah, I got on my Jason Campbell jersy.
Yeah, I was gonna wear my Santana Moss too, and then like my internet all messed up. But anyway,
there were lots of jerseys. There was no opposing nothing.
Real quickly, was it Commanders gear, Washington football gear, or Redskins gear mostly, would you say?
I say it was a healthy mix. I'm going to say 60-40 Commanders.
Okay.
60-40 Commanders, because I saw lots of the black gear. And the black gear is only Commanders gear. Right. There was lots of that. And then there was, everything maroon was Commanders. Everything white was Redskins.
Yeah.
Lots of Redskins paraphernalia. I saw some Redskins chains, Redskins hats. Hail to the Redskins during the songs.
Yes.
I even watched on TV. They even got off the Redskins blast on TV one time. He slipped up once.
Yes, nice. All right. Well, I know that you've got work tonight, so I don't want to hold you for too long. But thank you so much for joining us. Maybe we can do this again if you have time. Towards the let me know whenever you're free. You're always welcome here. For people who are listening and watching live on Facebook, Hurt is our first producer of this. One of the originators of the True Radio Network. And this is our 8th football season, which is crazy to think about now.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it's I'm happy that you're able to start our 8th football season right. And we started in 20 I guess it was 16.
It had to be 2015 because wow, you guys I went looking for you guys because my daughter was around and I wanted to take a step back. And I was like, yo, get another sports show. And GOP was like, 2 sports shows will never work.
I know. It's true. It was so fun back in the days. The Collins, doing this live on Facebook where we were live. We're never doing this through Zoom, and it's evolved so much. I feel bad because Twitch had so many bells and whistles. I was going to debut tonight with graphics and things like that, but I need to rewire my house because we got rid of cable, so everything is streaming now, and it took it down streaming the game and everything. So
look,
it's a different
YouTube
world.
TV is taking the game over, even though
Yeah.
their prices keep going up every month. But every year they go up. But
Yeah, it's the way, but I need to wire my computer so that way it's not on Wi-Fi, and we'll see if we can try it again. But thank you so much for doing this. We're live here. I will also record it and put it on our YouTube channel. And thanks again for everybody for switching over from Twitch. And any last plugs you want to give before we let you go?
Life versus Lymphedema on YouTube. Go there, give me a follow. I'm trying to help me get to 800, and then help me get to 1,000. And new content about my journey to the Commanders game will be up this week. I did the whole content about wrapping my leg and being prepared to make that long, treacherous walk. And spoiler, I dropped my phone in the creek trying to take the shortcut through the back of the parking lot. If you guys ever park in the green lot, you know what I'm talking about. I dropped my phone in the creek.
Did you get it back? Or is that part? Yeah, that's it. All right, that's good. All right, well, we'll have to watch that, and I will definitely link in the description after the podcast over to your channel as well, so people can just hit the link. I'll do that after we're done recording, and on our YouTube when we load this up as well. But thank you, Hurt, so much. Appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Later on.
All right.
See you, brother.
All right. Well, that was awesome. And thank you, everyone, for bearing with us. This has ended up being a really awesome podcast. We've got Tim we'll bring in right now. We'll talk a little bit about some general football things. So Tim,
I never gave my thoughts on the game.
How are you guys doing?
You never did. So we'll get that, and I want to get Tim's thoughts on the Ravens game, and we'll talk about that first, and then we'll get into the other NFL things. I also, in this hour too, want to talk about the state of DC sports and some of the other things. Give people a standings update on the Mystics, where they are in the playoff run. Same thing for DC United, and talk a little bit about the Nationals, where they are in the standings as well. And I'll also let Tim talk about the Orioles because they're doing great, and so we'll talk about that. So a busy second hour. Even if I don't get to raid in, we're not live on Twitch. Tim, my internet is not working, but at least we got enough bandwidth to get Facebook out there, and so I can then rip this later and at least get the audio podcast going and put this Zoom video up on my YouTube channel later with no fancy graphics, but it'll just be what it is. But Tim, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Really kind of enjoying the NFL week 1. Still a bit stunned by all the injuries around the whole league. That's really sad, but love this time of year. Sports is really getting great. All the sports kind of starting or ending at the same time. So the fall is an awesome time to be a fan.
Tim, I've missed you. I've missed you.
Yeah, it's been too long.
Yeah, it's been so much fun.
Feels like a whole year.
I know, 3 months. People don't realize because we stopped right before Memorial Day. We did talk about CP3 maybe doing some summer podcasts, but his work got super busy, and I'm super excited for that. And it ended up being over 3 months, which is one of our longest breaks that we've had, other than like the COVID break, But it's good to be able to talk some sports with you guys. It was a long summer, but let's start off with Champ. I do want to get your thoughts on the game, and then after that, I want to get Tim's thoughts on the Ravens game, and then we'll break down a couple of the other games from the week, and I'll let you guys give a scoring update on the Monday Night Football game. Tim, I don't know if you've got it on, but
oh yeah, I'm watching. I'm probably 40 seconds behind you.
No, I have it off.
Oh yeah,
so
I forgot. And you have streaming now too, so maybe we're
So what is the score right now? I'll let you quick scoring update.
13-6. Buffalo, but I think the Jets just got an interception. So it looks like they did. So they're going to get the ball back, but Zach Wilson's in. So tough to
Right.
score a touchdown and tie it.
Right, exactly. All right, so Champ, I do want to give your bill or thoughts on this game.
So I wanted to use this analogy. I literally thought about it like a couple hours before the podcast. Tonight is the last episode of Raw under the McMahon regime. So it's the end of an era there. Because starting tomorrow, WWE will be run not by a McMahon, but the day before that, we saw the start of a new era, the era of our new ownership. And I got to tell you, as a fan who's been a fan since I was a wee little boy, hearing the energy of that crowd was absolutely amazing. Like, I'm literally getting goosebumps right now just thinking about how I've not heard a crowd that electric in the last 10 years. And I've been to games within the last 10 years, and it didn't have that same electricity that we had on Sunday. The defense were the MVP of this game. They essentially kept the Commanders in this game when the offense was struggling. Defense was absolutely spot on. And imagine that defense if they had Chase Young out there. That defense would have been at least 5 times more effective, in my opinion. But they were still very effective even without Chase Young on the field. I love the fact that our first round pick, Forbes, made such a key defensive stop to turn the ball over on downs. And I said, that's the reason why they went and got this kid, because of his skills at finding the ball and being able to go after the ball in the defensive backfield. He really proved already at the start how good of a player he can be, even as a rookie. Offensively, it was a bit of a struggle. Sam Howell did show a little bit of nerves and looked like he was kind of out of his element. He had the sack fumble that turned into a fumble and 6 points. He did have the interception off a tip ball. But other than that, he was quite decisive as the game went on. He started to get more decisive. He started to make some throws. That throw he made to Brian Robinson Jr. for the touchdown was incredible. It was like Mahomes-esque. Like, he literally was twisting his body and threw it through a tight window and got it to Robinson for that touchdown, and then going and scrambling and reading which way the defenders were going with the receivers and being able to adjust that to get into the end zone untouched for basically what was the game-winning score for the Commanders. So despite the fact that Howell did struggle early on, he was able to compose himself. It showed that he has a quarterback's mentality. He had short memory when he came to mistakes, and he went back out and he executed. It was mentioned earlier on when we talked with Dugenais and when we talked with Hurt that the O-line definitely needs to start establishing themselves by running the ball more to set up the play action pass. And once you set up the play action pass, you can really do some damage because when you have a running back like Robinson or even Gibson, despite the fumble that he had, which was funny because the announcers thought it was Robinson that fumbled, even though it was number 24, and they later corrected it. It was like, okay, it was Gibson that was the one that fumbled. But I think that when you have 2 dynamic backs like that, having an effective running game would be very, very keen, especially with an offensive line that's still trying to gel. But all in all, this Commanders team, they had a pretty decent day. They had 248 total yards of offense, 21 first downs. They were under 40% in third down efficiency, but they held the Cardinals to much less than that on third down efficiency. They were 4 of 14 were the Cardinals on third down efficiency. So a lot of times they were getting off the field on third down, which is a good barometer to know how good your defense is doing. Now, they only managed to get to Josh Dobbs 3 times, as opposed to the 6 times that Cardinals got to Howell. So that's something they got to clean up there. But I think another thing that was kind of indicative of the struggle for the Cardinals was penalties. They had 9 of them for 122 yards. So that's going to hurt you a lot. It's hard to win football games, especially in the NFL, when you're giving up those free yards on penalties. And I think that's what helped this team. But in the end, this team grinded it out, they gutted it out, and they were able to walk away with an opening day victory after going undefeated in the preseason. So it's really showing promise. But this next game against Denver is going to be tough, having to go to the West Coast, be in that thin air of Mile High, and having to deal with a team that has a very fiery coach in Sean Payton, who decided he was going to open the season with an onside kick. And the only reason why they didn't get off is because they had a penalty. Otherwise, they'd have probably started the season off with an onside kick in the first possession, and no telling how that game would have went with that Denver had this weekend. But I really have a lot of positive thoughts when it comes to this Commanders team this season, and it showed with this first game, but hopefully they're able to keep it going game after game after game.
Yeah, for sure. Tim, I'll ask I know you were watching the Ravens game, but I know you probably saw some of the highlights. Do you have any outside take? Since so far we've had all Commanders fans talk about it, but I did want to get an outsider's thoughts.
Well, I saw some plays on Red Zone, and I think Ken's right. The defense obviously looks like they're ahead of the offense right now, and Sweat was a hero of the game. So I think that's something to build on. Hal's really young, so it's just going to take him time. The offense in the NFL outside of a couple teams was very sloppy in week 1. So I wouldn't get too worried about it. I will say I thought Washington would win this game easier, but just because Arizona and Dobbs, they're not a scary team, but a win is a win, and everyone, in the NFL is pretty competitive. It's just, obviously I think the offense has to get better to beat a lot of teams, and you look at like Dallas looks good, not the Giants, but it's going to be a tough division, tough schedule. But
Yeah,
I know
both the Eagles and Dallas both look good. So if 3 out of 4 teams are good, it's still tough.
Yeah, very tough schedule, and that was my thinking for this year. But just getting the new ownership, getting a sellout to me was like the most surprising thing, just because it's hard to fill that stadium, and you have to like the energy. Maybe it's headed in the right direction. You don't know when exactly it'll hit, but it seems a lot more optimistic than like years past, living here.
The city has wanted it for a while. You can see how they've rallied around the arena football team and around the XFL team, and they want the Commanders to do well. They just it's not like football. Hockey's kind of taken over, because Ovi has done better in the last 20 years.
Winning.
But overall, this is a football town. So it should be
that's how it should
hotbed.
be.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if it continues forward,
Yeah, good first week, but obviously some stuff to fix like almost every team so far.
Yeah, for sure. I feel bad because the Ravens had a rough start to the game too. I had both games up live.
Their first half was rough. The second half was better, but
yeah, I think it was actually fairly similar. I don't think on the scoreboard it was a similar game, but at the same time, I thought both teams struggled in the first half and they got it together in some ways. In the second half for sure. I feel so bad, that one of your key players got so badly hurt in this game.
You feel terrible because he's had 3 long absences and he's in a contract year, so it's really bad for him financially, and you just hate to see someone rehab for over a year, play 1 game or half a game, and then another long rehab and surgery. So he already got the surgery, I think, where it's tomorrow, so it's really quick.
Yeah, that's crazy. So it'll be interesting to see how that impacts your team, going forward. What are some of your other thoughts on week 1 for the Ravens?
I would say the defense was surprisingly good. Obviously, the Texans are not a good team. I think their defense is good, but their offense is going to struggle with the rookie quarterback. They obviously moved the ball much better in the second half and scored 2 touchdowns in the second half, which is great to see. But I'm a little worried about the offensive line, just because they weren't great. They gave up some pressure. They ran the ball pretty well, but just they have a couple injuries. They're minor injuries, but if they have two guys out or one guy out against Cincinnati, it could be a struggle. Obviously the Bengals are a good team. I mean, they look terrible week 1, but you can never discount them. So that's my main concern now. But, defense they had like 6 or 7 sacks. Roquan Smith had 16 tackles, so really glad to have him long term. And then Zay Flowers was the offensive highlight. He had 9 catches, first game ever. That's like some kind of rookie record for catches or something. So excited for him. And today's his birthday, which is cool. And Ed Reed's birthday randomly. So
That is random.
yeah. So I saw that on Twitter. But I mean, there's still a lot of talent. OBJ had a couple catches. He looked healthy. And he was very excited, obviously, to finally play because it had been 2 years. So that was another highlight.
I'm just happy that he looked decent, because he can build off of that. And some people thought he was going to be a complete bust, and like, why would you pick him up? But I think it's smart.
He looked good.
Yeah,
And healthy.
that's awesome. Ken, did you see any of that Ravens game? Do you have any opinions on it?
I did not see the Ravens game, but I am gutted for J.K. Dobbins to have come back from an ACL tear, and he actually scored a touchdown in this game and then ends up tearing his Achilles, and now he's out, and this is his contract year on a rookie contract. So it's going to be kind of hard for from a business standpoint to justify re-signing him when you haven't seen much of him throughout his rookie time. And so I think that's a big concern. Also, I did, like I said, again, I didn't see the game, but I got to see some of the stats because I went up against Lamar Jackson in fantasy, and it looked like Lamar Jackson, he didn't put up huge numbers, but I want to get it from Tim's perspective. How did Lamar look in the season opener from the pocket and things like that? How did he look?
He didn't look great. He ran, he ran the ball well, like per average wise, and he had a couple good first down runs, which was good to see. But in the pocket, he was shaky. He had 2 fumbles and lost 1, and neither were like great defensive plays. It was kind of just like bonehead dropping it or handing it off. One was a bad handoff. So I think it's some week 1 stuff that'll go away, but it's he didn't look too very comfortable in the pocket. And again, I think that's offensive line. They played badly, but he's making a lot of money now, so you want to see him play better. I would probably give him like a C for the game.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, like, he got that big contract. You would think he would come out firing on all cylinders after getting that big contract, which he managed to get on his own with no agent. But yeah, I was kind of disappointed to see the stat line that he had and things like that. So that's something I want to see him improve upon. Like I said, he's not on any of my fantasy teams, but I still want to see him improve upon that. Did you guys know that this first week of the NFL, a record of 14 starting quarterbacks in this league were African American?
Wow.
And
yeah, that's great.
And when you add in 2 Asian Pacific quarterbacks that started, half of the starting quarterbacks of the league were minorities that started week 1.
And that you said that was a record?
Yeah.
That's a record.
Yeah. Also, the Ravens have 3 African American quarterbacks, which I think is an NFL first.
Right.
Yeah.
And the coaches are
yeah.
African American too. So it's the entire group,
Yeah.
Yeah. So
which is good to see. And you see it in college too now. A lot of good quarterbacks coming up, like Alabama. Just so I think things are looking better. But obviously, like coaching wise, I know it's still kind of like bad, like proportionally.
Yeah. For sure. I'm going to go quickly through some of the scores of week one, and we're going to actually use Champ's picks as an example because he did so well, and I want to highlight that. The first game was tough. The only person who got it right was my father-in-law. So shout out to Tommy Dykes for the only person to pick the Lions over the Kansas City Chiefs.
Probably lucky guess too, but
Right.
he'll take it.
He's pretty smart at pick 'em and
Okay.
picks. Yeah.
Okay.
So
All right, I'll give it to him. I take that back.
yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I haven't asked him. So the Chiefs lost. That was kind of a surprise to most people. And then the Falcons did beat the Carolina Panthers, which is also very surprising in my mind. Well, especially with how they did it. I thought the Carolina Panthers would play better in that game. Champ had Carolina in that one. Champ also pit the Bengals over the Browns, and so it was surprised that the Browns beat the Bengals so handedly, 24-3.
Joe Burrow sucked.
Yes, yeah, interesting. He just got that contract too. So,
Yeah.
and then the Jaguars beat the Colts. So there was kind of an interesting matchup there because the Colts had won, so many games against the Jaguars head to head, it was the first time that I believe that the Jaguars had beaten the Colts in a while in Indianapolis, if I remember correctly. And because I know there was like two, but what was it? There was two competing streaks that was there, and I read about it, but I've now forgotten what it was.
Yeah, I think it's Jacksonville in Indy because the Indy dominated them basically until Trevor Lawrence got there.
And then one big storyline out of that was late in the game when the Colts were trying to make a comeback. Anthony Richards got knocked out of the game with an injury.
Yeah.
And they had to go with Gardner Minshew. I wondered what happened to that guy. And then he came in to try to bring him back, and he couldn't do it.
Yeah. So they beat him.
He's bounced around some. But
31-21, and then the Buccaneers-Vikings, which I knew was going to be a close game, but a lot of us thought the Vikings were going to win, but the Buccaneers squeaked by with a 20-17 victory in that one. The 40, so that was one of the ones that Champ got wrong, but he was right about the 49ers beating the Steelers, which I know makes Tim happy, 30-7. We've already talked about Washington and Baltimore winning, which he also got correct. The Saints over the Titans, that was a close game, 16-15. They had the Dolphins over the Chargers, 36-34, another close one. The Eagles over the Patriots, 25-20, that I didn't think was going to get close, but the Patriots did make it close in the second half. And then the Rams against the Seahawks, the Rams are up 30-13 in that game. But most people thought the Seattle would win that one. And then the Bears, with a lot of people thought they would be better than they were, but the Packers just kind of destroyed them, 38-20. The Raiders beat the Broncos, which Champ also got right, 17-16, another close one. And then the biggest blowout I've seen on a Monday Night Football game in a long time, Cowboys beat them 40-0 in New York. And it was just like, it was tough to watch. I was like, right away, and it wasn't like the offense of the Cowboys were really that great. It was more like every other facet was just scoring. Like there were, interceptions,
defense and special teams scored.
Yeah, a lot of them. And then there were some rushing touchdowns. But it's funny because, like, if you had Dak Prescott on fantasy, you wouldn't have thought that they played that well, right? But, at the same time, he continues his tear over them. I don't think he's ever lost to the Giants. And so continue that. And in this game, a lot of people thought the Jets would do well with Aaron Rodgers. But right now, the Bills, I believe, are still up 13-6. In that game. Champ did have that one too. So Champ, if he gets that right, we'll have 12 wins in the first week, which is pretty exciting.
I never do this well in pick'em, so I'm like hoping that I can keep that going the rest of the season. But I will say this: I watched some of the Patriots Eagles game because I have Paramount Plus, so I was watching on my phone. And Mac Jones looked good a couple of drives. Like when they had back-to-back drives of touchdown drives, and Mac Jones looked really good. So I have some hope that the Patriots will make the AFC East a very competitive division. But that also is very, very contingent on how serious the injury is to Aaron Rodgers for the Jets. If it's a season-ending injury, then the AFC East may not be as competitive because you only have 3 teams that look like they could be world beaters, whereas the Jets may not be world beaters. Miami, I didn't watch the game, but I followed it because I do have Tua as my starting quarterback in one of my fantasy leagues. And Tua went out there and absolutely balled out. He balled out. But my concern with him is hopefully he can stay healthy. If he can stay healthy and put out games like he did here, he's going to be in the conversation for MVP, honestly, because he goes out there and plays so well. He's a really, really competent quarterback that's mobile. That's one of the most dangerous quarterbacks you could ever deal with as a defense, is a mobile quarterback who can throw the football. And so that was a game right there that was a shootout all the way to the end. Baker Mayfield surprised the hell out of me. Like, everybody thought Baker Mayfield was going to be absolute hot garbage, and he went out and absolutely played well. And this first week of the NFL was really, really exciting. It really gave us a little bit of a barometer of what we can expect for the next several weeks of what is to come when it comes to the NFL season. There were a lot of games that no one thought certain teams were going to win. They did. Jordan Love impressed me as well. I mean, Jordan Love's had plenty of time behind Aaron Rodgers, just like Aaron Rodgers had plenty of time behind Brett Favre. And so here we are, like, this is the Jordan Love era, and the Jordan Love era started off very positively, though Justin Fields didn't look that bad in that game either. So that was another game right there that I got to watch a little bit of as well, and that was really good to watch. So a really fun first week of the NFL. I hope we get more fun weeks like this.
Yeah, I was really impressed, by the play all across the league, and I'm just happy that the NFL is back. And it was a fun, and college was fun this week too. And now that I have YouTube TV, I had screens going, and so once I get the networking correctly, and I think I'm going to run a cable into here. It's going to be quite the man cave with like a million TVs going, because you can have up to 3 games on YouTube TV. And then also sometimes you can have like a split screen where you have like 4 college games going on at once that they put out there on YouTube TV, which is pretty awesome. So I don't have any Masson, unfortunately, so I don't get to watch the baseball. But at least once it gets into the playoffs, those are all on broadcast, on different cable networks that I will get. So we use that as a little segue to talk a little bit about the summer sports and talk about some of the different sports teams in the DC area. Just to give, we're not going to break down all the Nats games or even the week for the Nats, but I did want to let people know where they were in the standings. They started off, pretty rough. It was a pretty rough start to the season for a lot of it, but they've been played better for a long time. The last 10, they have lost 7 out of the last 10, which has kind of put them out of a chance at the wild card. But I did like there was some fight from the Nationals this year, and a lot of their prospects are starting to look decent. And a lot of the people that we had actually traded away for picks, is interesting to see. Some of them aren't panning out the way that people expected them to. I love Max Scherzer, and I love Soto, and these players for us. Trey Turner has been playing better for Philadelphia as of late, but he had a rough start to his season, and but I'm just happy to see that they are a little bit further along in their development than people had expected. Tim, I know that you're more of an Orioles fan, but you follow the Nationals too. Do you have any thoughts on the Nationals rebuild?
Yeah, I agree. I think they are ahead of schedule. They have a lot of exciting players. Ruiz and Gore and a lot of pitchers coming up. And I think they showed really all their progress, especially in August, where they played really well. And Martinez got an extension also, and they had that little brief flirtation with the wild card race. They won a series in New York, which was great. Unfortunately, like you said, it hasn't been a great September so far. And they're likely to get last place again. But I think it's going to be a short rebuild, not a long rebuild. And I would say, like, watch out for the team in 2 to 3 years. I wouldn't pick them playoffs next year, but like maybe they could have a winning record next year and get third place or something, some improvement. So there's some excitement definitely at Nats Park. And it's still fun to go to games. I mean, I think as long as they maybe add a few free agents too to keep the team competitive, they'll be a fun team to watch for a few years to come.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get into the other side. Well, I just want to quickly go through the standings on the National League, and then so Phillies leading the division. The Cubs and Arizona are the other two
It's
division.
Atlanta.
Sorry, Atlanta.
Yeah, Phillies wild card though, I think.
Yeah, Phillies. That's right. Sorry, Atlanta is the division leader. The Dodgers and Milwaukee are the other division leaders, and then the wild card is Philly, the Cubs, Arizona, and Miami is one game out. San Francisco's a game and a half, and Cincinnati is also a game and a half out of the wild card. So 3 wild card teams make it in this new format, and it'll be interesting to see how that all pans out. Atlanta has clinched the playoffs; they're the only team in the NL to do that so far. And then on the AL side, the leaders of the whole American League is Baltimore. Houston and Minnesota are the other 2 division leaders. And then on the wild card, Tampa Bay. And then Toronto's 8 games back from that first wild card spot. Seattle is a half game back of Toronto. And they're pretty much tied with Texas. They just have the tiebreak. Seattle has the tiebreaker. Boston is 6 games back of the wild card on that side. So, Tim, I thought Baltimore played well the previous year, but I didn't necessarily expect them to be this dominant so far this year. I know we still have a lot of season left. Who knows what happens in the playoffs, but speak to how they've been playing in the regular season this year.
Yeah, I think even the most optimistic player or person working for the Orioles wouldn't have expected this. Honestly, one of their top 5 seasons in the past 40 years since they won the World Series 40 years ago. So that's great. The thing about this team is they're still very young. They have a great farm system. So you have a lot of guys that are competing even to get in the majors and stay in the majors. And I think that helps them because everybody, no one's guaranteed a job. No one's complacent or highly paid. They have the second lowest payroll in the whole league, but obviously second best record in the league. So I think it's just come together really this year with their starting pitching. They always had some hitting, and they had a great bullpen last year, and that's carried through to this year. It's just this year, finally, some of their young starting pitchers have been more consistent, and they don't actually hit a lot of home runs. They don't have a lot of guys that hit 30 home runs. They're not the Red Sox or Yankees with the power hitters or the Braves where like everybody in their lineup hits 30 home runs, but they have a lot of speed. They have a lot of guys that hit doubles and hit for average. So they're just a good, some of their parts is stronger than the individual type team. Good manager. I think their manager Hyde will win manager of the year, and Gunnar Henderson is going to win rookie of the year. So that's exciting. I would just say you don't know what's going to happen in the playoffs because they haven't been there as a team for 7 years. So it's been a while. No current player has played in the playoffs in Baltimore. So they're going to be inexperienced. Sometimes that doesn't matter, but in the playoffs, baseball, it's all about your top 3 starting pitchers because that's who, goes out, pitches every playoff game and decides it. And it's hard. It's going to be hard to beat a team like Houston with like Verlander and they're great starters. So that could be tough for them because I think with all their young pitchers, they're all going to be tired. They already are because they're not used to pitching this many innings. So we'll see in the playoffs, but just happy to see, more fans in Camden Yards and some playoff games, and we'll see how it goes. But they'll be good for a while, which is nice. It's probably going to be a long, good run because all the players are young. So that's the good news.
Yeah, I just realized what shirt you're wearing. Tim and I went to the
Yeah,
same
repping McLean.
high school, and this is my 14th school year working there, and my son just started kindergarten there last week, so this is starting
Oh
week
yeah,
2 for
congrats to
him.
Zach.
So yeah, that's pretty exciting. So he's had a great time there. So the next generation is there too. So that makes me happy. Switching gears a little bit, I do want to talk about the WNBA for a second. The playoffs are upon us. They start on Wednesday, actually, and I wanted to go through the final standings of the regular season. The Las Vegas Ace, so they do a combined standings when they do the playoffs, East and West come together, and then they still do a 1 through 8 and playoff. So there's not like an East and West bracket separately, but. The Aces are the number 1 team with 33 wins, the Liberty at 32, the Connecticut Sun 27, the Wings 22 wins, the Atlanta Dream 19 wins, tied with Minnesota, but they had the tiebreaker. Then Washington also had 19 wins, so there were 3 teams that were tied there. The Chicago Sky with 18 wins, and then just missing the playoffs are the Sparks with 17, the Fever with 13, the Storm with 11, and the Mercury with only 9 wins. And so that means the first round playoff matchup is the Aces, the number 1 seed against the number 8 Chicago Sky, the number 2 Liberty against the Mystics, the number 7 seed, the Connecticut Sun, the number 3 seed versus the number 6 Lynx, the Minnesota Lynx, and the number 4 Wings against the Atlanta Dream. And so I just wanted to give people a little bit of an update on that, and we will give a we'll let people know next week on the podcast how they do in their playoff games. And I'm trying to see if I can pull up the dates of the Mystics.
The first game of the playoffs with the Mystics and the Liberties Friday.
Got it. Thank you.
Oh wow, okay. Is that that's on the road probably, right? Because aren't they
Yes.
the lower seed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be on the road. But here's the thing: the Mystics do have the advantage because on the season finale, the Mystics were able to beat the Liberty on a last-second alley-oop shot to beat them. So they have the momentum going into this game. So I would look for the Mystics to be able to draw blood on them this coming Friday, having already beaten them already in New York.
Interesting. And how many games? I'm trying to remember. Sorry, I'm trying to pull up the WNBA skit. It's not one game, right?
By the way, the Jets are tying it with 4:55 left in the game, 13-13.
Thank you for the update on
Scored
that
a touchdown.
one.
Yeah, great touchdown catch.
Oh crap!
By, Wilson.
That's not good. I'm so close to winning my fantasy football matchup. Oh God!
If your opponent has either Wilson on the Jets, that's not good.
No, I have Buffalo's defense.
Interesting. So it looks like it's a best of 3 series, but the first 2 games are on the road for the Mystics, I think is how it works.
Oh, so that's weird. So game 3 would be in DC if they can split.
Yeah. So that's an interesting
Cuts out on the flights.
Flights, exactly. So game 1 is on Friday, game 2 is on Tuesday. So I guess we'll just recap the first game, and then the potentially 1 or 2 other games we'll recap on the following week. So I just wanted to let people know, since we cover all the DC sports teams without the politics, I wanted to make sure that even if Carol couldn't be here, that we would cover them as well. And then we also have a little bit of soccer, so I'm going to pull up the standings, which they call in soccer the table, in the Conference East. So it's a little bit different playoff format now. There's so many soccer teams now, Tim. It's so different than when we were younger, right? So there's 14 in the West.
Getting close to 30, right?
Yeah, 14 in the West and 15 in the East, so we're up to 29. Yeah. And so with that being said, 9 teams make the playoffs, and there's a battle between the 8 and 9 seeded teams to see who makes that final spot. So right now, DC United's actually in that 9 spot, and Montreal is in the 8th spot, and the Fire are in the 10th spot, and they're all just about 2 point. Or sorry, how many points? It was the Montreal's 1 point ahead of DC United, and DC United's 2 points ahead of Chicago Fire. So they're currently holding that last playoff spot. So it's very close. And if people don't know, you get 1 point for a draw, which is a tie in soccer, and 3 points for a win. And so it's still there's still a bunch of games left. I will say in August they had a rough August. They lost to the Red Bulls and the Union. But in September, they were able to beat that Chicago Fire team, one of the teams that they're fighting for playoff positioning with, and they did get a draw in their last game on Saturday against the Earthquakes, which on the Western Conference side, they're one of the teams fighting for their last playoff spot. So both teams needed that win or at least a draw to try to stay even in the standings. They got a lot more games coming up in September. The next game is at Charlotte, and that'll be on Saturday at 7:30. And then just a couple days later, there's a game against Atlanta on Wednesday, the 20th. It's a 7:30 game, so that'll be a home game. And then just 3 days later, they play the Red Bulls. So they'll have to play 3 games in just over a week there. So that'll be a rough thing. So we'll recap the first game of that next week, and then we'll preview the next 2 coming up after that as they're trying to fight for some playoff positioning. So I just wanted to keep people apprised of some of the other DC sports teams. We're not just a Commanders show, but I do appreciate the Ravens coverage and the Commanders coverage and talking about all the different teams. I'm going to let each one of you guys give one final thought about week 1. It could be about the Commanders or about any other team. And then I am going to let Tim go, and then I'm going to talk a little bit of wrestling with Champ. I do want to also, before we head out of here with the 3 of us, talk about 9/11 for just a second and pay remembrance to that, because Tim and I actually were together on 9/11. I do want to mention that before we get out of here tonight, because it's such an important part of history, and I do want to talk about that. So real quickly, we'll start with the football. I'll start off with you, Tim. Anything else you want to talk about? Any other game that you didn't mention before, or any final thoughts on the Ravens you want to let our listeners know about?
I think just because this Jets game is on, it's really good. It's crazy to me how cursed their franchise seems. To see Aaron Rodgers pick your team, there's so much hype. They should be really good. And he gets hurt on the 4th offensive play of the game. All the life in the building goes out, and they fall down by 10 points. They have, a pretty shaky backup, Zach Wilson, but he comes back, and now they're tied. That's, a big story of week 1. But I just feel bad for them in general. And it would have been nice to see Aaron Rodgers play more games, obviously, in New York. I'm not saying he's out for the year, because they don't know, but they're saying it's serious, so that's sad. But yeah, the Jets are cursed. That's just a fact.
Yeah,
they just got a fumble recovery though, as I said that. So
yeah, that's
maybe I reverse jinxed it.
There you go. We'll keep on watching that and give us updates as we go through this. But Champ, any final thoughts on week 1 that you want to, either about the Commanders or about any other game that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I want to see the Commanders offense start to really gel and really start to show some dynamic gameplay. You got Eric Bieniemy in here, who has been a proven successful OC, which coming in with 2 Super Bowl rings with the Kansas City Chiefs, and he has the weapons and the tools to be able to have this offense be just as successful. I just want to see that happening with this team. But I also want, as I said earlier, I want to see a lot more fun games around the league for the remainder of the season, because a lot of these games had a lot of intrigue, had a lot of storylines, and had a lot of really good games that came out of it. So that's what I want to see. I just want to see the NFL to continue to be a lot more interesting. This is the 104th season of the NFL. So I want to see this to be very interesting. And I want it to be a point where we get down to the final couple of weeks and you're trying to figure out who's going to be in, not, oh, this team is definitely in or this team's definitely in. It's like it's a dogfight. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was excited about week one. I'm just excited that the podcast is back, that we can get to do this every week. And I know that Carol is, sad that he's missing the show. But I do hope that people go check out his YouTube and Facebook and check out his, pre and post game yesterday as well. And hopefully he'll have him back on, and maybe he won't be hosting as many shows, but, come on at least as a guest. And I loved having Hurt on as well, talking, and Dujane. And it's just fun to break down these games. And, it's not going to be too long until the hockey team is back and our, NBA roundtable returns. I do want to ask your quick thoughts, Ken, on Team USA, international basketball. Kind of pathetic, I'll get Tim's thoughts too if he wants to, but just I don't know if you watched any of it or what your thoughts are on that poor showing.
I saw the alerts on my the Score app, and it's very disappointing that back when I was a young lad, USA basketball was one of the most dominant when it came to international play. But now, as a 41-year-old man, they didn't even get a medal this go around. That's a very, very dire sign of the times when it comes to our international basketball team. And with the Olympics approaching pretty soon, I don't have a lot of high hopes for them in the Summer Olympics if they're playing like this, honestly, or the Winter Olympics.
Well, the problem is they seem to just like all the All-Stars only want to play the Olympics.
Yeah.
So then you got your B tier team that's fielded every time, and it's frustrating because like I still think our B tier team should beat them, but the international game is a different game, and it's obviously you can't just dominate it just by putting Team USA on your on your shoulder patch or whatever. But Tim, do you have any thoughts on international basketball?
Yeah, exactly. Well, first thought is my rooting interest for international sports is you only get one. I'm only going to care about one. I only care about the World Cup in soccer. I don't care about this like CONCACAF bullshit. And in basketball, I'm all about the Olympics. So, I didn't care a whole lot about this tournament. I didn't watch a lot of it. I'm not saying it's a waste of time or anything, but you're right. This is like the C team, to be honest. There's a lot of good players, but dozens of guys stayed home that could have made this team better, and they want to rest because the NBA season's too long. Like Jokic didn't even play, and Serbia was kind of disappointing, obviously, because he stayed home. So it's not only an American problem, but in general, I've heard Steph Curry might even play in the next Olympics, and LeBron's going to come back and stuff. So I think we'll win that, and that's what people care about more. But you're right. The rest of the world's catching up. Like our C team isn't good enough to win. Probably just we need our top players if we want to win at this point. It's a lot of parity, which is more fun to me.
By the way, Robbie, Josh Allen on the first play after the touchdown fumble, and the Jets have the ball.
What?
Yeah, they have 4 turnover. He looks terrible, to be honest, tonight. And the Jets are driving. So
what's the score now?
It's still 13-13. And the Jets have first down.
How much time's left in it?
2:40.
Yeah, I may risk it and put it on. But just because we're so far, if it does go out, then so be it. Yeah, let me see if I can get this to work.
It's about to be a 2-minute warning, so that's probably a good time,
Yeah.
because you'll have like a commercial break. You can wait 3 more minutes.
That's
Not
true.
really miss much.
So it sounds good. Well, I just want to talk about 9/11 for just a second before we let Tim go. So if people don't know, Tim and I were actually at school in going into 11th grade, and it was the start of a brand new building, in fact, and that they were opening that day. And so we heard that the first tower crashed, and then some of us had radios and figured it out, and so they were like, they told the seniors and juniors, get out of here, don't tell the little kids what's going on, we don't want to scare them, and so a lot of us left. And Tim, did you go home right away after that?
No, I went with a couple of friends to another kid's house in Potomac nearby.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because, we didn't have cell phones yet. So we had to use the house phone there to call parents, but we couldn't reach most of the parents because they were all like stuck in traffic from DC to come home.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it was harder then to like figure stuff out. So
yeah, my dad was actually an ambassador at the time, and he was stationed in Asia. He was one of the highest-ranking U.S. officials in Asia at the time of 9/11, and he's an international telecom guy, and so did that. So I was always worried, because he's not even here, and basically a very similar flight to the one that he took was one of the ones that crashed, into one of the buildings, and so I was thankful that he traveled out a week earlier, and but it's kind of scary. A lot of his friends died in that Pentagon one, both on the airplane and on the ground, and it was a rough week. And I just I want to pay respects, to all the people that lost their lives on that day. It's something that will always be with us, and it was weird. We had a moment of silence today, and I realized during that moment of silence, none of the kids in that school were even alive when it happened, which kind of like blows my mind. Like,
it's crazy to me now, that kids will ask like, what year was 9/11? And it's like, oh yeah, it's not obvious to a lot of even like adults really at this
22 years ago.
Weren't alive, or they were very young,
Yeah, it's crazy.
I told the story on my podcast, the No Spots podcast, which is up right now on Spotify and Amazon Music, in our final thoughts of where I was for 9/11. I was a sophomore in college, and the night before I had a disagreement with my roommate, and so I was sleeping on the floor of the dorm room of a friend of mine who slept in the honors dorm. So I slept there, and I was awakened by a high-pitched "what" from a man who had had voice deeper than Barry White. But he managed to get very high octave when he heard that a plane hit the towers, stepped on me to turn on his TV. We looked at the TV, and we saw in horror as the second plane hit the building, and watched as both towers went down, and then they broke in as the fire was burning on the towers, and they said the Pentagon got hit. And then I got panicked because, again, I have family in DC. I'm down in Petersburg, Virginia, Virginia State University. I'm 2 hours away, and I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have any way to call them. We had calling cards with minutes on them and a landline. And we couldn't get through because communications were down because of what was going on in New York. Plus, everybody's trying to call people, this, that, and the third. I finally was able to get in touch with my dad later on that afternoon, and he told me everybody's fine. My brother was in high school at the time. He was home, but Ballou Senior High School overlooks has the sight line where they could see the smoke coming up from the Pentagon, from where they're located, because there is the nickname of Ballou High School is that big bad school on top of the hill in Southeast DC. It's literally you can see the smoke from what some of the windows at Ballou Senior High School when they had the old building. So I was able to get in touch with my family. They were fine. Everybody was fine. And as I said in the story, when we walked around the campus, that campus is one of the most liveliest campuses that you will ever see. But on that day, it was somber and quiet, and there were so many people talking about people who had family members that were in the towers that perished, because we had a very large contingent of students that were from New York. And so there were a lot of people that had families that were most likely in those towers, and it was one of the most somber and quiet that I've seen that campus that during the day, because at night it's pretty quiet. It's somewhat quiet. But it was mid-afternoon, early evening, and it was dead quiet and somber. And that's how you know how impactful this was, that a campus this lively can go from lively to silence.
Yeah, we had no idea what was going. They basically told us, get out of here, don't tell the kids, and they didn't even know what to tell the kids for a while. It was just sort of this crazy time in American history. And what was weird is the next year they have the sniper in DC. So like talk
Oh,
about
I
like
remember that shit. Oh my
yeah,
God.
that
Woo.
was like a crazy last
Yeah, it
2 years.
ruined half of the sports season.
Yeah, it
I
was.
remember, yeah, it affected everybody a lot, like just because of the school situation.
I
Yeah.
remember that because I had dropped out of VSU and I was home and I was working, and I remember the sniper shootings, and I remember they say if you're at gas stations to like take cover and
That's
all this
my
other
gas
stuff.
station. That's the gas station I go to every time now to fill up. That's
Yeah.
how crazy it is. Like thinking about it 20 years later, I'm like, wow, that's nuts. But anyway, we've gone through a lot living in this DC area. It's
Many
something that,
tragedies, and
yeah,
anthrax after that,
yeah, for
anthrax
sure.
in the mail.
Yeah. It's an interesting place to live. We try to keep politics out of it, but I knew on 9/11 I just wanted us to pay respect for a moment, and at least talk about that, because I don't think it should ever be overlooked on any year, no matter how many years goes by. But Tim, with that somber note, but I will let you go. I do want to talk a little bit of wrestling with Champ for a minute before we end the podcast. But Tim, thank you as always for being a part of this, and we'll have you back on, if not to do an NFL thing. NBA's around the corner, but I'm sure we'll have you on even
Yeah.
before that. So it's good to see you
Definitely.
back.
Yeah, great to talk to you guys again. Have a good rest of the show.
Thank you so
Take
much.
care, Tim.
Appreciate it.
See you guys.
Awesome.
Bye.
By the
All
way,
right.
scoring update: Jets
Yes.
kicked the field goal. They're now leading 16-13.
Nice. All right. Let me see if I can get this on my TV here while we talk
And
about it. I do want to
and
talk. Yeah. Sorry. What was that?
I was gonna say, and I'm about to lose in fantasy because of that field goal. I'm now about to lose by about less than 3 points. I'm a little salty. I was trying to go 3-0 across my leagues, and I'm about to go 2-1.
So I'll just ask the general question: is there anything that can happen in the last minute 48 that you can get the 3 points back? Is there any player that you need to do well?
No, I have Buffalo's defense. They need a turnover for me to even have a chance. But if the Jets get the ball back and they're leading, they're going to run the clock out, and there's no way they're going to get a turnover. So I'm pretty much done.
Yeah. Oof. All right. So I put it on now so I can watch it too. If anyone let me know if the feed gets choppy. I think because I do the Zoom through their system, it's not actually outputting a video. We're just having a Zoom conversation, and they're sending it to Facebook for us. So that's why I think that's why I was trying to figure out why we can Zoom and I can be live on Facebook but not on Twitch. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm going to definitely work on some new wiring in the off week here, and then hopefully get it set up for next week. But if we have to go back to Facebook Live, it is what it is. Right? So I'm happy that we have this option. But I do want to talk a little bit of wrestling. There is a little bit of some sad news in the wrestling world, and it's been an interesting summer. With a lot of interesting pay-per-views and a lot of different wrestling, the different groups, and the CM Punk situation. There's just a lot of news. So I was thinking, Champ, with the last 5 or 10 minutes, let people know some of the big wrestling stories of the summer, and then also give a shout out for your podcast for more, and then I'll give a scoring update here at the end with this game.
Well, one of the big stories was CM Punk getting terminated from AEW. There was a backstage altercation that happened at All In, their first trip to London, England. What happened was Jack Perry was defending the FTW championship against Hook. For those who may not know, Hook is actually the son of the legendary Taz, who was a legend in ECW. They were going at it in what was called an FTW rules match, was basically an anything goes match. Jack Perry brought out a UK style limousine and then said into the camera, and I quote, "This is real glass, cry me a river. which was a shot at CM Punk, who weeks earlier had vetoed him using real glass in a segment on Collision. And so CM Punk, who has one of the most fragile egos in wrestling, took offense to that. And after the match was over, when Jack Perry came back, because CM Punk was the first match on the main card, this match took place on the pre-show, he approached Jack Perry. There was a physical altercation in which not only was Jack Perry involved, but also AEW president, CEO, and head booker Tony Khan was involved. Apparently, Tony Khan, CM Punk lunged at him, and all of that happened. Samoa Joe, who was going to be CM Punk's opponent, had to break everything up, and that match almost didn't start the pay-per-view. It was actually going to be moved, but they ended up going with it anyway. But after an internal investigation and a meeting with legal counsel, they finally came to the decision that they had to let him go after that, especially because the fact that Tony Khan was involved in a physical capacity, they had no choice but to sever all ties, because this is not the first time that CM Punk has had a physical altercation backstage with executives with AEW. This happened last year at All Out in Chicago, where he went scorched earth at the press conference and then had a physical altercation with the EVPs, the Elite. So they had to let him go, and that happened. So there's that. The other big story was two very, very influential and very shocking deaths. Hall of Famer Terry Funk, who had been sick for a long time, passed away. But then 24 hours later, Wyndham Rotunda, who was known as Bray Wyatt at just 36 years of age, passed away from a heart attack, and which came out of nowhere. It was announced on Twitter by Triple H that he had passed away, and the wrestling world just went all the way down, because there was all this talk about him returning, having plans in place for his return and things like that. He was supposed to be healthy, because earlier on this year he had to be sat out of WrestleMania because he had a mysterious health issue, which was later revealed to be COVID, which exacerbated a heart issue that he had. And then apparently as he recovered, but apparently that heart issue and the COVID caused the heart attack. He passed away in his sleep. He went and took a nap and he never woke up. So that was those are some of the big stories. The other big story, as I mentioned earlier, tomorrow by close of business, the merger between WWE and Endeavor, who is the owners of UFC, will close, and they will officially become TKO Holdings, which means that for the first time in decades, the WWE will not be run by a McMahon, which is unheard of in the wrestling world, because especially with WWE is synonymous with the last name McMahon, especially Vince McMahon, or even his father previous to him, Vince McMahon Sr. But for the first time ever, WWE will be run not by a McMahon. Even though Vince McMahon is an executive chairman, he is not officially running WWE. So it is definitely the end of an era when it comes to one of the biggest wrestling promotions in the entire world. So that right there is a story in and of itself. But wrestling has been through a lot this summer, between, with the Punk situation, which was recent, with the recent deaths, this new merger that's going to be closing in less than 24 hours, as well as like wrestling promotions going, doing their normal thing. Impact's getting ready to celebrate its 1000th episode of its weekly program on Thursday. They recorded on Saturday, but it's going to air this coming Thursday. And no one thought that Impact, with the struggles they had towards the midway part of their tenure with Dixie Carter at the helm, that they were going to even make it this far. But they're about to have their 1000th weekly television episode this coming Thursday. New Japan is slowly recovering from what happened with the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. And they just recently had their G1 Climax tournament completed, with Tetsuya Naito, who's one of the legends of that promotion, winning it. And they're really starting to ramp back up there. They're also really doing a lot here in the United States. They've established a new championship for women, for both on the U.S. side as well as the Japanese side, which is a big thing because of the fact that New Japan normally didn't work with Stardom, which is under the same umbrella of Bushiroad. But this year they started working with Stardom. They had Stardom wrestlers on their main Wrestle Kingdom card earlier this year. And so now they're starting to do things as well. MLW is currently in a legal lawsuit with WWE over monopolization of TV rights. So there's that going on. So it's a lot that's going on in wrestling. But if you want to know what's really going on in wrestling, you can check out the No Spots Weekly Wrestling Podcast. We are now streaming on Sunday nights instead of Saturdays. We're streaming Sunday nights beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/True No Spots Pod, with the audio going up at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Amazon Music and Spotify every week going forward. We decided to move to Sunday because of the fact that AEW added a third television show to their weekly programming, which is called Collision, which is another 2-hour program. And so in order to adjust to that, we decided to move to Sunday so we can cover that as well as other weekly TV shows on our weekend review. So it's a lot that's going on in wrestling, but I will say this.
I got to hold on right here. A field goal is up and it goes off of the goalpost and through. And Buffalo ties it 16-all with 2 seconds left in the that's crazy. It dunked in. It's just rare that you'll ever see it go off. So I'm going to see a replay here, and it's a pretty far. I mean, they're almost at the jet symbol, and it goes off and hits the left bar just barely in and through sideways.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Yeah. Wow.
Because they're going to overtime, which means Buffalo can get a turnover and I can still win this game. Okay, good. Beautiful.
yes, there you go. So
beautiful.
Maybe a pick six for you. That would be helpful, right? So
that would be absolutely perfect. That was a 50-yard field goal, by the way.
Yeah. So it looked like it was pretty far. Yeah, I think they were on the 37-yard line. So that makes sense. So anyway, I just wanted to jump in with that because that was kind of a big moment. It's been some interesting stuff. I like it's interesting the storylines in the WWE as well, that they had two brothers, go at it and now be on opposite promotions, because, one basically prevented the other from getting the Universal Champion over Roman Reigns. So I thought that was an interesting storyline. What are your thoughts on having the brothers on different promotions?
And this is something I've said on the podcast. I actually said it on this week's episode, is that this bloodline storyline is one of the longest running storylines in WWE in the last several years. It's gone on for the last 3 years, since the time in the pandemic when they were in the Performance Center in front of nobody, and in the Thunderdome in front of people on screens. This bloodline storyline has been one of the most compelling storylines to be on WWE TV, and they keep revealing layers after layer after layer every single chance they get. They have Jimmy Uso say, okay, I got my brother, we're out of the bloodline, whatever, but then he turns around and says, no, I'm gonna cost him the title because I don't want my brother to become corrupted like Roman Reigns. But then this past week, he's making overtures like he wants to be back in the bloodline, while Jay is now on Raw having to try to make amends for the actions that he did while he was in the bloodline with people on the Raw roster. So it's another layer that's been peeled off. And I said this, I said, I want to see where this goes. I want to see where they take this, what direction they take this, and things like that. So I'm very excited to see where they go. Roman, of course, has put himself into a position where he doesn't have to show up every week. He can show up here, there, wherever, and people are going to react however way they will. But I just want a new
champion. I'm kind of done with him being the champion. I don't mind the storyline, but I need something new. I just need, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm kind of done with.
I honestly think that Cody Rhodes will finish the story next year. I think he'll get traded to SmackDown. He'll find a way to get into the title match at WrestleMania next year in Philadelphia, and he'll finish the story and win the titles then. I think that they didn't pull the trigger this year because I guess they wanted Roman to surpass 1,000 days as champion and put him in the record books, like with the likes of like a Hulk Hogan or Bruno Sammartino. but I think that come Philadelphia next year, Cody finishes the story and wins the title.
I was watching a Hulk Hogan, match last night. I was like, man, I miss Hogan. Like I was, he was so great. He was one of my favorites back in the day, and just I was
Yeah,
watching.
in front of the camera, he was great. Behind the camera, he was a dick.
Yeah, I agree. But as part of the storyline, though, I guess he was against the Viper, and it was where Viper thought he had him down, and then he had his foot on the line, and then he came back and hulked up, and it was I love that shit. So but anyway, I love talking wrestling. I don't get to do it enough, but definitely go check out the No Spots podcast and on SportsOTHP.com. We have the podcast partners button. You can catch all their latest podcasts there, but also definitely go check out their Twitch. Really wish I was on Twitch. I give you all your shout outs, but I'm happy that we could at least have this conversation. And it's been a nice talk. I think, I don't know. You might be frozen. Your camera's frozen. I can still hear you fine.
Yeah,
think,
No, my Zoom is frozen, so I'm not trying to mess with
it's fine.
it.
It's all good.
I will say this. This week's podcast is going to be very interesting because myself and Sith are doing a retro review of the big 5 pay-per-views from the year 2000, which is the Royal Rumble.
Oh, you were
Unique year.
Oh, I think you're breaking up. I can't tell if it's me or if it's you.
It's probably me.
Okay.
It's
Wait,
probably-
no, you're back. You're back.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I'll say is that we're going to be retro reviewing the year 2000 Big 5 pay-per-views for WWE, which was a very unique year, including one of the worst WrestleManias in the history of WrestleMania. So I'm somewhat excited, but also dreading to rewatch those pay-per-views just because of what they were. So I'll be interested to see what happens. But that'll be this week's episode.
For sure. Well, overtime's about to start, so I'll let anyone who's still listening go check that out. But yeah, go check out the No Spots podcast. I'm going to try to fix our tech for next week, but it was still a great episode. I'm so happy. Thank you, Champ, for joining me. Thanks, Tim and Hurt and Dugenet. It's been a fun show. I'm happy we had a victory for the first week. I hope that the Commanders have a wonderful second week, and hopefully we'll have less tech issues next week, and we'll have our return to Twitch. But I really do appreciate you, Champ, for co-hosting, and hopefully we'll have CP3 joining us back next week as well. But thank you again for everything. And any final thoughts before I end the show?
No, I'm just excited for the return of Hell's Kitchen and Kitchen Nightmares in a couple weeks from Gordon Ramsay. That's it. Other than that, no kigenyo, sayonara.
Thank you so much. And once again, we're DC Sports Without the Politics. This has been episode 312, Victory Monday. We'll be back with episode 313 next week, where we'll recap the Broncos game. We'll talk about the Mystics playoff situation, maybe talk a little bit more baseball playoffs as that sort of rounds into form as well, and also talk a little bit of soccer and how they're doing in their standings as well. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week. This is Robbie signing off.